What do you think the most important thing about obedience commands are? Clarity for the dog. That's exactly what we're talking about today. Welcome back to the McCann Dogs Podcast. I want to make sure that when my dog comes home, I'm not assuming they know anything. And I have all these plans working up in my head because a week from today, which is when we are recording the podcast, I will be heading off to pick up my next puppy.
Right,
so
yes.
I've got so many things just whirling around in my head, getting ready for planning and getting ready to meet him because I've only gotten to watch him on webcam. I haven't actually met him yet. They did their puppy evaluations yesterday, and it was just fascinating watching all of their little personalities, and I'm ready. I'm ready for this next puppy, and I've got so many fun things planned. But of course, there is nothing that is more important than the basics, because without the basics, without a good solid foundation in basic listening skills, this dog will be relegated to being on leash for his whole life. He'll be relegated to being behind a fence for his whole life. And I can't have that. That's not my lifestyle. I like off leash hikes. I just bought 12 acres of my own so that I could head out anytime in any direction on my property and enjoy hikes off leash with my dogs. And it's a wetland that I live on, so it has critters galore. I need to have good listening skills right off the bat. So as soon as my puppy comes home, I'm going to be starting immediately. You know, a lot of the times people think, we'll let the puppies, settle in for a few months and then we'll start training. And often that is sort of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit.
Yes, you'll be letting the puppy, I'll settle in for a few hours and then off we go.
Literally, I find that the first week home, I'm sort of like, okay, you know what? Let's let the puppy find their feet. Let's build a relationship. Let's get to know each other. Let's do all the things that facilitate that. And then I'm usually already starting to teach foundation for learning systems during that first week, because let's face it, most puppies hit the ground running when they come home.
Right.
You might have a couple of days where they're a little bit uncertain. They might not eat for the first couple of days, but usually after a couple of days, they kind of go, okay, this is my new life. I feel secure here. I'm ready to go. Let's do it. They're so adaptable and so wonderful.
Yes.
So I'm sure I'll be starting learning systems right away. Simple things like getting him to think about offering behaviors, things like teaching him that yes is something that he should really perk up when he hears that word. It's going to mean that something great has happened. And I want to make sure that I'm not assuming things like his name, for example. We often get people who come in and start classes with us, and one of the things that we teach that we believe in very strongly is a good response to name. And people often think that it's very much like humans. You just assign a name, and then that name becomes the thing that the person identifies with. And that's true of humans, but it's not true of dogs. We actually need to spend time teaching our dogs, not necessarily what their name means, because that's too abstract of a thought for dogs. We need to teach our dogs what we expect of them when they hear their name.
Right. And to them, their name is just a sound.
Yes,
It's not even a word, because they don't know what words are. It's a sound the humans are making.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point to make right off the hop of this episode. Dogs do not learn words. They learn sounds. So if I say sit and my partner, who is a man, says sit, those sound very different to the dog. So we need to make sure that we're fair in that. Even you saying sit to a dog would sound different than me saying sit to a dog. So a lot of the times people will jump right in whole hog and just start having everybody throw these same words at the dog. And without the training aspect, that can be a really difficult thing. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good point. I think that a lot of the times with commands in general, we see people overusing them quite often.
Oh, yes.
We see people saying, like, for example, we just clarified that dogs will learn what the associated expectation is when they hear their name. They don't necessarily understand that that's their name, that's their identity. Like, all of those things are very human constructs.
Right, yes.
So with our dogs, what we're doing is we're saying, I'm going to create an association of you doing this behavior when you hear this sound. So with let's just use Ned as an example. When Ned hears Ned, he knows that the expectation is to turn and look back in my direction. So if he's 30 feet away, I say Ned, I expect him to turn and acknowledge me. And then from there, I can give him further information. Right. I might tell him to come. I might tell him to sit. I might tell him to lie down. There could be a whole bunch of things that come in that circumstance. I want to make sure that that understanding that he's developed of the association is really sharp. So if I use his name all the time for no real expected reason, he is going to learn to ignore his name.
Right.
Right?
Like that sound will mean nothing.
Yeah, exactly. If I just kept saying, Swanee, 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 you're so pretty. Swanee, you're so fun.
Thank you.
Look at Swanee's big smile. I'm saying nice things about her. It's very pleasant. But chances are, if I keep doing it over and over and over again, Swanee's going to learn that, what, Shannon just keeps talking and I'm going to ignore it. Right. I'm busy with this thing.
Right, yeah, especially if there's something more interesting. I'm going to
Which, let's face it.
Right.
No, truly. Yeah. And this is what we do to our dogs a lot of the time because we love them and we want to engage with them and talk to them. And we do those things, but we don't realize that a lot of the times we're watering down some of our commands.
Right. Yes.
So also true that if we haven't conditioned that word, if I am saying Ned, 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 Ned over and over again, and I'm expecting something, but I haven't taught my dog the expectation, I really am putting myself in a bit of a spot where I'm doing the work,
right,
but I'm not going to get the results because I'm not creating the expectation that I'd like. So what do you do with your young puppies when you are working on response to name and you don't want to actually use their name yet? Do you have systems in place?
Well, yes. Well, so when I first bring my new puppy home, generally the breeder has been saying pup, 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 or puppy, puppy, puppies to get their attention. So I'm going to continue to use that. So when I bring my puppy home, I'm going to use the pup, 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 puppy, puppy,
Love
puppy.
it.
And then I'm going to work on their name as a separate exercise.
Yeah.
So I'm teaching the puppy that there is a new word, but I'm going to use those old words when I need their focus.
Yeah, I love that. And I do the same thing. I've been watching these puppies on webcam a ton. I know that when these puppies are running in any direction, it's because the breeder is moving and saying, puppies, pup, 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 puppies. So they're going to have a strong association with that already, whether
it's like when I see a cat, here, kitty, 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 kitty.
Yeah.
Often cats respond to that. So, most puppies are going to respond to, here, puppy, puppy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even if you know that your breeder didn't necessarily, your dog's breeder, I should say, didn't necessarily do that same thing, you can still use words like that to attract your puppy's attention so that you're not watering down their response to name. So puppy, puppy, puppy is probably going to work to attract their attention. And then if pleasant things happen when they get to you, they're going to learn that responding on that puppy, puppy, puppy is a great thing.
Right.
But here's the thing. We don't have necessarily any expectations with things like pup, pup, pup. So if we overuse it, if we use it and don't get a response, et cetera.
Or if our kids are using it.
Yeah, good point.
Or our spouse is using it all the time. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. And, you don't care about watering that thing down because it's not something that you're going to rely on for your dog's lifetime. But their name is something that you always want to make sure you have some way of getting your dog's attention in any situation. And a lot of the times people will want to use come just for everything.
For everything, yes.
For everything. And like we just talked about, that's going to water down that come command quite a bit. So we want to be able to get our dog's attention on their name. And that's how we teach things at McCann's is we teach a really great response to name. I want my dog to check in anytime they hear that name so I can give him further direction and further cues. It's one of the foundational exercises that we teach. And it's one of the exercises that we use as sort of a bridge to the recall as well. So if I can get my dog's attention, I can get him to move in towards me. I can keep him safe. So if I have commands that are really well ingrained, well trained, I've spent the time doing the repetition, I know that my dog is going to have a good response to it, then I have that means of getting his attention, right? So response to name is a really important thing. We like to treat it as a command. So we teach it first, we create the association, and then once the association's in place, we'll start to test it. So in a nutshell, tell me what the process is for creating an association with response to name first.
Well, what I do is I have the little puppy in front of me and I've picked their name. I'm just going to use Spot for now. I'm going to say, Spot, give them a treat. Spot, give them a treat. Spot, give them a treat. Spot, give them a treat.
Perfect.
It's similar to if I said Shannon and gave her $50. Shannon and gave her $50. She's going to come running every time she hears.
Running.
Well, until she's a millionaire, she'll come running.
There's a lot in this pot. Oh my gosh, millionaire just from association with my name. I love it.
Yes,
I love it.
And dogs are very food driven.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, if you were to take a handful of your dog's kibble every time you go to feed them a meal, if you were to take a small handful of that kibble and you were to do name, feed, name, feed, name, feed, even if you have a dog that is 8 years old,
right?
And you've watered down their name so much, and you're thinking, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll see if I can. I'll try my hand at training this response to name thing. No reason you cannot do this at all.
Yep. Or teach a dog a new name. Maybe you've adopted a dog and you don't care for the name, or the dog's learn to ignore that name completely. Start fresh with a brand new name.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. And that happens because people get dogs that are rehomed, and there's no reason that you need to keep their same name.
Right.
They're going to have to learn what your expectation is behind all your commands anyway. So even if you have a dog that is coming to your house, say you purchased a really wonderfully trained dog,
but their dog's name is Kevin.
Yeah.
And your husband's name is Kevin.
You can't have two Kevins.
What are you going to change, the dog name or the husband's name?
Well, I'd probably change the husband's name. But, No, I love that example. You know what? Who knows? It could happen. Truly, though.
I'm sure it has happened.
It probably has happened, yeah. But if a dog's coming into your house as a new dog in the house, you're going to have to establish what you expect from any of their commands. Even if you've bought them as a very well-trained dog, you're going to have time with the person that trained them so that person can explain what they've trained, what the expectations are, and, really important, what you're going to do if the dog fails.
Right.
Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
How we say we're only
robots.
human. We're going to make mistakes. Dogs are not infallible either.
Right. That's what I see. Dogs sometimes off leash walking down the street in Hamilton, and I think, what? Like, I can't believe. And the person's like, oh, they're fine. They always stay on the sidewalk. And I thought, well, they always stay on the sidewalk until they don't.
Yeah.
Yes, they're not robots. And I don't know why. Yeah.
I would not be tempted to challenge that at all. Like, I would not be tempted to say, oh, I think my dog's going to be fine beside a busy road. You know, if you want to see your dog's great control, keep your leash loose.
Right.
You don't have to have a tight leash, and you don't have to be physically maneuvering the dog. If you have your leash, even attached to your belt loop and then loosely connected to the dog, you can have that same control situation. Right. Hands-free, dog beside you. But if a squirrel runs out in front of that dog and you're looking to the right because there's a nice park over here and you don't even see your dog see that squirrel and take off, and it only takes a couple of seconds, right?
Or in the city, a car could backfire. Yeah. There could be a loud noise. The dog startles.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just blows me away the amount of time I see that with people.
Yeah, I'm way too risk averse for that. So my off leash time is always in bushy, out of the way spaces. There's bushy spaces where there's lots of critters, and there's lots of risk in there as well. But that's why
there's not the car risk, the traffic risk.
Yes. The worst thing that happens in that scenario is my dog chases for a few feet, and then I call them off because I have trained them well enough to be able to be called off of whatever critters it is that they're chasing. Right. So this puppy coming home, I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag yet of what his name is. I'm going to keep that to myself for now, just in case it changes.
Is it Fido?
Minute.
Rover.
It is Rover. Yep. Rover.
It's funny how those are two, like Fido and Rover, but I've never met a dog named Fido or Rover.
I'm going to name him Spot.
He does no spots.
Even though he doesn't have any spots.
He's orange. I think you should name him Pumpkin.
Orange, yeah.
Pumpkin.
But he is going to have a million nicknames because I am just like everybody else, and I want to squish him and go, oh, buddy, you're the cutest thing in the world. And I want to snuggle him and kiss him all over and, make him my next best buddy, and, do all the bonding things and all the training and all the. So in those moments where I'm addressing him as the cutest little buddy in the world, etc., if I want to use something identifying in there, which is natural for humans to want to do, I'm going to be coming up with all sorts of nicknames. And I don't know the nicknames yet because the nicknames sort of evolve as the puppies evolve.
Yes.
Like Ned ended up being all things nerdy because he was just a nerdy pup. Like he was just goofy and clumsy and he made me laugh all the time. So he became the nerd and it just fit. You know, it just fit him so well. Pretty much every picture I took, I could label as Nettie the nerdy. So lots of nicknames. I use lots of nicknames so that I don't water down my dog's response to name. And what we're talking about here, it truly applies to every command that you want to teach your dogs. And you can keep things simple if you want. You know, we have a bunch of commands that we use because those fit into our world.
Right.
But you could get by with the basics, right? You could get by with a good response to name, a good recall command, a good heel command, and maybe a settle command.
Right, yeah.
You know, I could see getting by with those 4 things. Wait, stay. Yeah, I would add those. They come in really handy.
Yeah,
wait especially comes in really handy.
Yes.
I do a lot of work on stays, but literally the reason that I do work on stays is for obedience competition and for control work.
Yes.
I don't actually use stays in my day-to-day life. So we teach 2 different commands for stay. One is stay and one is wait. So, Swanee, game show time. Tell us, please, if you would, what is a wait?
I'll take whatever's behind door number 3, please.
There's no doors. There's no doors. Now I'm thrown right off.
What is a wait? So a wait is a temporary pause you put on your dog. So I ask my dog to wait, then, okay, you can hop in the car. Wait while I tie up my shoe. Wait while I put down this bag of groceries. And then my dog can be free after that.
Perfect. I love that. And it's a casual thing. It's basically, it's just an extension of a temporary pause in that moment. Right. So if I told my dog to sit or down, I would expect them to just remain in those positions until given the okay. But I can help my dog out if I need to by adding that wait command in just to give him a little bit more information. It's not necessary, but it's a nice thing to have in your back pocket, especially when your dogs are young. You know, by the time they get to be adults that are well trained, you can be a little bit looser with things. You can say sit and walk away and expect that they're going to hold the sit. But when we have our youngsters that are still trying to figure stuff out, it's nice to give them a little bit of extra information, just courtesy for them, just to help, right? So
I'll combine them too with a hand signal too.
Yeah.
And it's come in handy now.
What's your hand signal look like?
My wait is just a casual wave in front of their face. Okay. So usually I just, wave my hand in front of their face. And it's come in handy so much now with Honda is deaf as he's gotten elderly and he can no longer hear my commands. So,
he's almost blind too, isn't
he? He is. He is.
So soon you're going to have to have like a series of like
taps, Morse code.
Gentle touch,
I'll teach you Morse
maybe
code.
some like blows. Right. You're going to have to rely on that.
But the other day I was getting my mail out of my mailbox and I opened my front door and...
Good thing you said my mail out of my mailbox.
Yeah, just getting the neighbor's mail. And I just casually, automatically just gave him a little wave in front of his face and he's like, oh, okay. And he waited while I got the mail out and then back in the house we went.
Yeah.
So it's so handy to use.
It is, absolutely. And the nice thing about wait is that being a casual command, it's not something that we let our dogs release themselves from, of course, but we can release more casually as well. So if I tell my dog to wait, he's across the room, and I go and, pick up something off the floor and put it away, I don't need to return to my dog to release him from that wait. Right. Where we're very strict about this with stay. When I tell my dog to stay, I expect him to do nothing other than sit there and grow cobwebs until I physically return back to his side to release. And it's amazing the difference that very clear ending of the exercise does for reliability on stays. Yes. Whereas wait, you get dogs. We use wait for sport application as well. We use wait for building drive and excitement. So, I might tell my dog wait at a start line in agility, for example, and then I'm going to walk as far as I need to away from him. And before I release him from that start line, I know that my dog's going to be on the tip of his toes. And of course we train them well enough that they hold the weight regardless.
Right.
But it's much more loosey-goosey, and the dog really needs to have enough emotional control to be on the edge of excitement where they're going to start an agility run, but still hold position in that weight. And of course, if I had to return to his side now to release him, because that was the criteria that I had established, that wouldn't make sense.
Right.
So I'm going to leave him there. He's going to be on the tip of his toes. And I want that. I want him just about ready to burst through the gate when I say, okay, and let him take that first obstacle. But of course, I want it to be on my cue and my command.
Right.
So
yes, and you really do see the difference. I know
huge.
When I leave my dog in a wait, they tend to keep an eye on me. They're watching me because they know I'm going to be getting them to do something different in a moment.
Yeah.
Whereas when I leave them on a stay, say I've left them on a down stay, they'll often just close their eyes and say, "Well, there's nothing to do now until Christine comes back. She's not going to ask me to do anything."
I love that.
And when I hear her footsteps coming back, I can wake up.
And that is the biggest difference that gets established with the dog. The stay, because they know you're never calling them from out in front. You're never releasing them from out in front. You're always going to physically go right back to their side to release them. They know nothing exciting ever happens until my owner returns and they're there with me, and then they release with me. And it ends up creating reliability. So just a little bit of a story. We used to, our ties or our strengths and our beginnings started in competitive obedience. Deb and Marty were very, very competitive in obedience competition, both US and Canada, way back in the day when they first started McCann Professional Dog Trainers. Flyball and obedience was, the big things that they spent time in, and they excelled in obedience.
And in flyball as well.
And in flyball, absolutely, in everything.
In everything, yeah.
And so our roots are strongly from obedience and obedience competition. And we're constantly having to evaluate, okay, is this thing that we're doing still because of that obedience competition, or is it because of who McCann Professional Dog Trainers is now, which is more family pet obedience based. We our competitive avenues at McCann's now are agility. We don't have the competitive obedience classes. We've got rally classes, but we've got agility as a strong point as well. And lots of family dog training, like people who just want what I talked about in the beginning of this episode. They want foundation. They want a dog who listens. They want a dog that they can enjoy, right?
Yes.
Training is not about creating robots.
Right.
Training is about creating a dog that you can give freedom because you know you can keep them safe.
Right.
So there's never a detriment in doing this training and getting reliable foundational skills. But anyways, we tried an experiment several years ago now. It's probably going back a decade now, but we thought, you know what, maybe this returning to the dog's side on stays, it was always a hard thing to get people to do anyways in class, but we thought, you know what, maybe we can loosen the reins a little bit with that and still get reliability. I mean, we get reliability in the weight, so why not give it a shot with stays? So for a session we experimented, or a couple of sessions actually, we experimented with not having people return back to their dog's sides for stays. Oh yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Right?
You should see the face Swarty's making right now listening to this. That is exactly what happened. Things fell apart, and it was maybe 2 sessions max before we went, nope,
not working. Yep.
This is not just about obedience. This is truly something that the dogs need to have reliable stays and good emotional control from that. So, of course, we went right back.
Having a dog stay still. Dogs are creatures of
Absolutely.
Motion.
Yes,
and
they are.
having an animal remain motionless under your verbal control is a great show of leadership.
Yes, it is.
You know, how many animals can we say stay and they don't move?
Yeah.
Like very, very few.
And it truly is a nice, cut and dry, black and white way to create leadership.
Yes.
You know, if you have a dog that is adolescent or challenging you, they don't need to be adolescent to challenge you. They can be younger than that. They can be older than that. There can be any time in your dog's life where they suddenly decide, you know what? I don't want to follow the rules. I almost always revert back to stays as one of my go-tos to say, hey, you know what? You have to do what I've told you to do.
Right.
Stays are great for creating emotional control. They're great for helping the dog understand that sometimes you have to do things that are contrary to what your instincts are telling you to do, which is what is building that emotional control.
Right.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
I remember many years ago when I was
that's
a
a lot of
child.
minis.
Yes. My dad had a car.
Only last week.
A big old station wagon. Caprice
wagon.
Classic.
Okay.
And it always got flat tires. It was, I don't know what was happening, but that car got flat tire after flat tire after flat tire. And my dad's never had cars with flat tires since.
Oh.
So my dad became a pro at changing flat tires.
Okay.
And I remember we were driving to a dog show once, and we had our 2 boxers in the back in crates. So my dad needed to take the dogs out, take the crates out, and to get the spare tire out.
Yeah.
And I remember we were at the side of a busy road, and my dad getting these, and I was a little girl, so I wasn't a lot of help, getting the dogs out of the crate, and he had them sit and do he was so confident in his stays. He had them sit and do stays. He had me hold the leash, but there was no way I could hold these boxers back. But he told them, sit, stay, while I held the leash. And then he pulled their crates out. And then he went back to them, released them, put them in their crates at the side of the road while he proceeded to get the tire out and change it.
Wow.
And I could only imagine the pandemonium if those 2 boxers were like, weren't trained at that point.
Yeah.
But he was, very confident that these 2 boxers would sit and stay. And that's,
Good.
My dad was an obedience trainer. He's an obedience judge now. And those dogs had a good, solid foundation and stays.
Skills are so important. Obedience is so important. I mean, you just never know what's coming up. Like, who would ever expect? This is something I worry about all the time. I actually had a breakdown back, oh my gosh, 2002. So a little while ago now, 22 years ago, but it's still with me. I had a breakdown in my Jimmy on the side of the 403, and I had one dog with me at the time, and the tow truck driver that came to deal with my vehicle that had broken down was not very dog friendly and was demanding that the dog was not coming into the cab of his pickup or his tow truck. Right. And luckily I had already called somebody to come and pick me up anyways, because I still needed to continue on to work. I was on my way to work at the time.
What did he want the dog to ride in the?
He wanted me to put the dog back into the disabled vehicle that was being towed. And I was absolutely adamant that I was not doing that. It was Jaden, my toller, and he was maybe, 7 months at the time. It wasn't even like I had my Rottweiler with me that day. Luckily, I did not. I could understand there being some, trepidation about that. But this little toller that was clearly it was just not a dog friendly person. So I'll leave it at that. Whatever demons that person had, I felt bad for him. He was very angry to begin with. And I said, it's okay. I've called for a ride and they're coming to pick me up. I never forget. He looked at me and he said, this was the only saving grace. He looked at me and said, I don't know how I feel about leaving you on the side of the highway. And then he got in his truck and he drove off.
And left you at the side of the highway.
I thought, well, you obviously feel okay.
Goodbye.
But anyways, you never know what's going to happen. Right?
Yeah.
We set out at the beginning of the day not thinking we're going to have a breakdown, not thinking we're going to have to wrangle this dog at the side of the highway. I mean, luckily he was well trained enough at that point that I was able to clip on leash and bring him to my side and keep him under control so that the traffic whizzing by at, 100 and 120 kilometers per hour.
And another thing too, always have an extra leash in your car. Always have an extra collar. Yeah. I always have an extra dog bowl.
I actually always have slip leads in my car. Right. Because I want to make sure that there's no chance of the dog slipping the collar.
It's a good idea.
I have some lovely friends that lost a dog who panicked on the side of the highway. Similar situation and slipped the collar and was killed. So I always make sure that I carry slip leads with me for the car so that I can put them on and lock them tight, and there's no chance of any panic
slip lead is a leash that's a leash and a collar all in one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it just, if the dog pulls at all, it's not going to come up over the dog's head. So they usually always have their collars on in the car in the crate. So I could just attach a regular leash to it. I don't have breeds that tend to pull out of collars easily. But having said that, these friends that lost their dog were toller people that I know. So it was a toller that slipped the collar. And you just, you hope that you've checked your collars recently and whatnot. But when you have dogs that you're off leash with a lot, you don't necessarily touch their collar as much and things can get loosened and whatnot. So I do check my collars regularly.
Yes. And the slip lead would come in handy if you found a dog too.
Yes.
You never know. You could be out and you find a dog and want to get it to help.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Because if you don't know the dog and there's a dog that's lost, even if the dog looks like it's going to be a friendly dog, when they're lost and they're panicked, they go feral really quickly.
They do.
Like they really revert to their basic instincts so quickly, which is why whenever you see signs of lost dogs, they almost always say, do not chase, do not call, call this number, let us know where you sighted the dog, but please don't try to engage with the dog because they know it's just going to send the dog panicking back into wherever they've been, hiding out and trying to keep themselves
especially
safe.
some breeds are more predisposed to becoming feral very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So a slip lead can really make all the difference because you can make it super wide to safely get it over the dog's
to loop
head.
it over. Yeah.
Anyways, how did we get on that subject?
I don't know, but we completely went astray there.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about emergency situations.
Right, yes.
You just never know what's going
to
to happen.
Know. You never know what's happening in life. Yeah, what's around the corner.
Yeah, it's always good to have some backup in case of emergency, something there, right? You just never know. Anyways, that day, the person I called for a ride for came and picked me up off the side of the road with me doing I was like 20 something. So I was, my car broke, upset about the whole thing, but I made it to work.
Right. You know what? I would have came and picked up Jaden, but just left you behind.
See, the tow truck driver could have done that.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. I like having dogs in my car, but no people. Yeah.
There you go. Oh my gosh. All right. So, obedience, even if you think, I'll never need that, you might. It's worthwhile putting the time in. Just like our kids, right? You might not live near a road, but it's probably worthwhile to still teach your dogs how to safely look both ways and cross a street.
Your dogs?
Because did I say my dogs?
Yeah.
I meant your kids.
Yeah.
Probably a ridiculous analogy anyways.
Yeah.
But.
Or swimming too. Like, everyone.
That's a great one.
Everyone,
so
I don't know everyone, but most people should give their kids swimming. Everyone should give their kids swimming lessons.
Absolutely.
I was going to say not everyone does, but all children should know how to swim.
Yes. The basics so that if you fall in somewhere, you can save yourself 100%.
Like I
couldn't agree more.
Live in the middle of Saskatchewan. And there's no lakes or water to be seen, just flat prairie, but you never know.
There could be a big puddle.
Right, yeah.
After the rain.
Yeah. Or you might go on vacation, yeah. And it must be embarrassing to adults who don't know how to swim, too.
It might be. But it would also be, it would induce a lot of fear if you were trying to be confident and comfortable around water and you didn't know how to swim. I would imagine that would be a fairly tough go. Right. So, it's always nice to feel like you have control of whatever situation you're going to come across. So with dogs, that means being able to call them, being able to get them into heel position, being able to have them hold their horses for a second in any position. Hopefully it's not ever on the side of the highway with the tires being changed, but you never know.
Yep. You never know.
You truly never know. So working those skills, such an important thing. We talked about different commands for recall. We talked about pup, pup, pup. I want to talk a little bit about our 2 recall commands. So response to name is the way of getting our dog's attention. So I don't expect my dog to necessarily run in my direction every time he hears my name, but I do expect him to acknowledge me and say, what? Yeah. What do you want?
Just like we do with our kids.
Yes.
You call out your child's name, you expect them to say, yeah, what do you want?
Yeah. And you know what? You don't want the 14-year-old, my niece right now, 14 years old, and she loves her phone so much. This generation of youngsters coming up that have never been without a phone. And if she's not on her phone and you call her name, she whips around. She's like, what? What's up? Super athletic kid, lots of energy in there. So she gives you a good response. If she's on her phone, you call her name, 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 call her name. And then finally she might go, what? As she's still at her phone.
Right. Yeah.
So I want a better response than that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So on to
you should actually say something like about wait and say, well, there's a spider on you. Like, so she'd be like, yeah.
There you go. Oh my gosh, there's a worm.
Yeah. There's a tick on you. It's about to bite. It's about to bite. Oh, yeah, it's too late. It bit you.
Ticks are bad. Yeah. We just put out a great video with Dr. Paula,
yes,
our local vet here. I know the McCanns have been going to her practice for a long, long time. Great information. We just put out a great video on ticks because They are out of control now in our area of the world.
And it's new. Shannon and I are old enough to remember when there was no ticks in our area.
Literally.
Like I never thought about ticks.
No, and I've been field training since 2001, since I got Jaden, and I never had to think about them until about maybe 10 years ago. I started having to, like, there'd be like one or two that you'd talk about in a season, and then there'd be a dozen, and now it's like I can go through a dozen in a week on my property without even blinking an eye. Actually, I could probably go through a dozen in a day, truth be told. If I go through the really heavily wooded spaces, it's
and
not fun.
Even us too. Like I used to think nothing of walking through a meadow, you know, sitting in a meadow, laying in a meadow.
What about skipping
in a meadow? But now I stay out of meadows, like because I know I'm going to come back out with a whole bunch of ticks on me.
Sad.
I know. Like I remember with my friends, we go exploring on our bikes, and I remember like laying in fields as a kid. And I think now, like, I would never encourage children to go and lay in a field.
You're so right. I'm just having flashbacks now of all the spaces that we used to wander around and play with mud.
Yeah.
We played a lot with mud. We were very entertaining children.
And it's funny because I often feel kids now don't get outdoors enough.
Yeah.
But now there is a reason maybe to keep them out of the tall grass and that. But yeah, it's a shame. Yeah.
Oh, it really is.
Those ticks have really.
They really have. And they're here to stay, I feel.
Yeah,
you know, unless we get some pretty extreme winters again, we're not going to get rid of these things. So
that's too bad. Yeah.
It's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. Turn down the sun. All right. Not really. So I want to talk a little bit about our 2 recall commands that we teach, because we tend to teach what we need, right? So when I'm at home, when things are casual, I don't want to overuse my come command. Come is what? What does come mean for McCann Professional Dog Trainer speak?
Come means immediately stop whatever you're doing and turn and run to us as fast as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the command. My dog's running towards the road. There's traffic coming. My dog chases the bunny and they're headed out into the bush where they're going to be lost forever. This is the emergency command. This is the command that you don't want to skip on your training of. You want to make sure that you have a solid response to it, because this is the one that you're going to use when anything happens that could be a danger for your dog, to get your dog safely back to you. Okay. And we teach it from start to finish. We teach it extremely clearly in all of our, in our life skills online and life skills in person programs. And then we build on it through the other levels of life skills, and we create, you know, by the end of life skills 1, we create a reliable recall with all of the systems that are in place to do so.
Right.
And
so for me, the word come is only ever said in training.
Yes.
And in an emergency.
Yes.
Other than that word is never spoken.
Yeah. So when I have a youngster, I spend a lot of time training that come command. And then once it's trained and once it's really instilled, I spend a lot of time making sure it continues to be that. So I go through the training system, and then I make sure that I continue to look critically at that recall. Are there any holes? Was there any slow responses? You know, when I'm in training and I'm testing my recall and I'm all set up to make sure that if it fails, I can follow through, I'm making notes in that situation that, oh, you know what? He really found that running bunny to be an extremely hard thing. How do I replicate that? How do I train through that? You know, we're very creative.
Right,
we have to be very creative as dog trainers, because we don't have squirrels at our beck and call to say, hey, run so I can train my recall.
You know what? Go to Gage Park in Hamilton. It is Squirrel City.
Is it?
You can't throw a stick without hitting a squirrel down there. Like, it's unbelievable.
Do you spend a lot of time throwing sticks around there?
I do. I go there and throw sticks all the time. And the squirrels are quite tame because it's right smack dab in the city. So they're used to people.
Gotcha.
People feed them. And they're big fat squirrels too.
I bet.
And they have no fear. So I highly recommend Gage Park in Hamilton for squirrel training.
Excellent.
It's worth the trip to Hamilton. Come to Hamilton. Wait, what would I say? Stay for the squirrels, or come to Hamilton.
Come for the hammer. What do we come for the steel?
Stay for the squirrels? Stay for the squirrels. I don't know.
Well, so if you don't have a Gage Park with lots of fat and happy squirrels that are willing to hang around for you, you know, you have to simulate that. right? So we use flirt poles, we use toys on lines, we use remote control cars with fuzzy toys on top. There's all sorts of ways that if you have the desire to do the work and get the results, you can get there with simulated activities, and you can build the value for listening, and you can also create the setup where the dog knows they have to listen. There's not an option here. So we create that reliable come command. Now, here's the thing. That leaves us with the rest of the time.
Right.
And we need something to fill the gap for the rest of the time. We need a more casual recall command that we can use in day-to-day life.
Right, yeah. Like when your dog's out wandering in the yard and it's like time to come in. Or,
exactly.
Yeah, the dog's across the living room and you want to get them into the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you can simplify and you can use your response to name for that. Or you can add something like pop, 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 and you could carry that on for the life of the dog.
Yeah.
We also teach a casual command with just the word here, and we just repeat the word here. So we'll just use here, here, here as a really casual command. So if my dog's out in the backyard sniffing every single corner of the yard and lifting his leg on everything, I might say, Ned, here, here, here. And here's the thing. If I said, Ned, come, he's in the middle of, he's in the middle of leg lift, in the middle of a pee. I expect that leg to immediately hit the ground and his butt to boogie in my direction. If I say, Ned, here, 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 and he's in the yard and his leg's in the air, he can finish. And he does. I'm fine with that. I need him to get to me eventually, but it's not an emergency situation.
Right.
Which that, in a nutshell, is why I have those two commands.
Right.
This one means absolutely do or die. And this one means, you know what? Get here. Get here quickly,
right?
But finish what you're doing first.
Yeah.
Right.
Another casual one that I use is, well, Honda can't hear anymore, but when he could hear, I'd call out, "Where is Honda?" or "Where is Atari?" Or whatever name, and then that dog would, "Oh, I'm here."
Yeah.
It was kind of more fun because it put a little bit of a human spin on it, but I know they're just responding to that noise that they're saying because that noise has been rewarded. Yeah,
for sure. You know what? The best responded to cue in my household always is and always has been. I say clean up.
Clean up? Oh, because you've dropped something on the floor?
Yep. I'll get dogs coming from 2 towns over to get on that cleanup.
I wonder, sometimes Honda packs up and leaves. I guess that's where he's going.
He's coming to my house to clean the floor. Honestly, I don't know how people without dogs clean their floors.
Well, yeah, I don't know. But I know my partner now often, he's never had a dog. So he sees Honda licking his floor. He's like, "There's Honda lips on my floor now." Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's like, I don't know how you lived without Honda lips on your floor.
You had to bend over and pick it up like a
schmo.
Like what? What were you thinking? Get the dog just for the cleaning capabilities.
Right, yes.
No, truly. Honestly, like dogs value things that bring them value. So if you are anywhere and you call them here, 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 and you give them a little cookie for coming to you, chances are they're going to think, "Oh, that's great."
Yeah.
And they're going to love the opportunity to listen to that here, here, here command and come running in your direction. But in the moments where they're like, "Oh, you know what? No, hang on. I'm in the middle of something really important." You're watering that here, here, here command down a little bit by saying here, here, here and letting them delay, which, because it's a casual command, it's really okay.
Right.
Whereas with our come command, I don't want any sort of moment in there where my dog thinks, "Oh, I can take my time." Right. That one is do or die. You have to come at this moment when I call because it could be a dangerous situation for you if I don't.
And I do follow through with the here, here, here. If I called here, 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 and the dog's like, "No, I'm playing with a pine cone," I'll wait, not very long, like maybe 3 seconds. And when I recognize the dog is not responding,
and that's good training,
then I will, okay, you know what? Here, here, here still means you have to move towards me. Yeah. So I'll go in and follow through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And that's good training. And I would say that that's true of any cue that we give our dog.
Exactly, yes.
If you don't follow yourself up, if you don't back yourself up when your dog says, "No, I'm not going to," it's going to fade out. Right. You're going to get unreliable commands.
Right. It's like when police officers say, "Don't speed."
Yeah.
They pull you over, "Don't speed." Okay, I won't. Then there's no consequence.
Yeah.
But when the policeman gives you a $200 ticket, you go, "Ugh, I'm not speeding anymore."
And we're all different types of people, right?
I don't speed. I'm
of
not
course
a
not.
I'm not a speeder.
Of course not. You would never.
I would never do that.
But we're all different types of people. And for some people, speeding is really gratifying. right? We get people who want to go 150. I mean, there's lots of stories on the news about people getting their cars impounded because they were going so fast.
I'm
that
too
it was
frugal
more than
to spend the
50 over.
gas.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm too frugal to spend the gas. I coast as much as I can.
It's true. There you go. Especially with gas prices these days.
Yes.
But truly,
you're right. Yeah, like I hear the cars that are all muscled up and you hear their engines and I hear them flying down Main Street in the middle of the night and it's like, oh my goodness, the gas.
Yeah. The gas they're using.
What? Yeah.
Think of the cost.
Right. Yeah. Like what kind of job do these people have?
Yeah. That they can afford these backfiring mufflers.
Right. And
lots and lots of gas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, truly, it's very similar to our dogs, though. Like it might not trip your trigger to speed. You know, maybe it doesn't. Don't spit out.
Grinds my gears.
You know what really grinds my gears? There you go, Albert. I might be one of those people that gets joy out of going really fast. And innately, this is rewarding for me. I might be one of these dogs that innately it's rewarding for me to, most dogs, it's going to be innately rewarding to chase things, but.
Or to roll in things.
Yeah, but every dog is a little bit different, right? Maybe one dog thinks rolling in something gross smelling is the best thing in the world. Right. And it's so much more rewarding than any cookie they could ever get.
Yes.
And maybe the dog thinks, I like rolling in things, but I'd rather have the cookie. So you need to come up with a game plan that works for your dog. And you need to make sure that your backup plan includes saying you must and holding your dog accountable for those things, because if you don't hold them accountable for the little things in day-to-day life, the big things will fall apart. Yes. For sure. Give them the habit of listening, make it valuable for them to do so, spend good time teaching clarity for them and teaching them what the expectation is, and then keep it well-oiled for life. And it's just nice to live with well-trained dogs. It really is. And they get to have freedom. Right? Yes. They get to enjoy their life, enjoy sports, enjoy whatever, all of the enrichments in the world don't hold a candle to the ability for the dog to go out there and interact with the environment off leash and joyfully with you, the human. So foundation work, so important.
Yes. And that's a lot of families. They want a dog that they can take places. Yes. And if you have never done any training or done serious training, you're not going to have a dog you can take places. You can't take them to the children's baseball game. You can't take them to the family reunion. They're just out of control. They're not welcome. It's true. It's true. And it's so hard to deal with them and manage them in those situations when they're out of control. Right. So having the ability to take your dog anywhere, to be portable with them, having the ability to say, you know what, I need you to just sit for a minute while I do this thing. I need you to mind your P's and Q's, even though there's a soccer ball in play. Right. Yeah. Right. There's this soccer ball going back and forth on the thing and the dog's getting excited. But hey, you know what? It's not your soccer ball to chase. All those kids out there will be very disappointed if you steal their soccer ball. Right. Yes. Or even just going like on a camping trip. Like it's nice to be able to set up the dog's crate or an X pen and the dog can sit in there and, you know, you get out the dog when you have time, but you know, they can sit in the crate and they can watch activities and just behave in there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, life is just nicer with well-trained dogs. Yes. So there's another pairing of cues that I want to talk about that people will often confuse. And that is off versus down. Oh, yes, yes. A lot of the times when dogs are jumping up, people will be saying down, even though they say down when they expect their dogs to lie down. Right. So that's contradictory right people off the bat. People often say sit down too. Sit down, yeah. That's down. 2 commands. Yes. That's 2 commands. Yeah. Knowing that our dogs learn sounds, try your best to keep it simple because the simpler it is, the easier it's going to be for the dog to continue to retain that understanding of that sound, and the easier it's going to be for you to keep on the right track with those cues too. So, and going along back to the word come, because it's such a common dog word, you might find you have family members that are very ingrained and they're going to use it regardless of what you tell them. Then pick a different word. Yeah. Pick a different emergency word like front or could be anything. It could be banana. Be a different language. Yeah. 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 Pick come in French instead of, what is that? EC? 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 Yeah. EC. I know a French word. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So Pick a different word, and that's now the emergency word, and you can let your family water down, come until the cows come home. Yeah. But you have a word that you can use to get the dogs back safe. Yes.
You can use the Harry Potter words for like return to me spells or whatever.
Is it Acacio or Acacio?
I need to be a bigger Harry Potter fan, but one of
Harry
our
Potter
students
person,
did that.
yes,
it was great.
Yes, yeah, return or Alohomora. No, that's opening a lock. Alohomora.
One of my favorites for response to name, it was a person with a dog named, I'm pretty sure it was Bowie, if I'm remembering the right star correctly. The dog's name was Bowie, and the woman had kids, and the kids really, really wanted to be overusing the dog's name, and she was training, and she wanted to make sure that she had a well-oiled response to name. So she said to the kids, and I thought this was brilliant, we're going to use Bowie's first name. So they called the dog David as their
good idea,
as their nickname that they didn't really care if the dog responded or not.
Yes.
So the kids saying the dog's name over and over and over again had no impact on the dog's actual response to name, which was perfect.
I wonder if David Bowie was still alive, how he feels that there's dogs named after him.
I bet he's honored. I would be honored if somebody named their dog after me.
I'm naming my next dog Shannon.
Yeah. A friend of mine named one of her goats after me.
Oh, yeah?
It didn't end up being a pleasant story. That goat unfortunately didn't make it. So that was kind of sad, but
I'm sure it had nothing to do with being named Shannon.
Hopefully not.
Well, it's hopefully
like people. Is it a curse?
I don't know. It's like I remember when I worked at the emergency vet hospital. There was a few dogs and cats came in that were named Lucky, and I thought, this animal was not lucky.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Self-fulfilling prophecies, maybe the opposite of. All right. Well,
do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have some questions, but we were talking a little bit about off versus down.
Oh, yes.
So keep those ones clear, because a lot of the times dogs are jumping up and people will be saying down. And of course, down is lie down on the ground, unless you've taught something really different. There's no magic in any of the words, so you can associate whatever command or word you want, but keep it clear.
Right.
There should be a difference between your dog jumping up on you and you asking them to get off, or you reminding them to stay off, and them lying in a down position. So just make sure you have two separate cues for that.
Didn't one of our instructors in the past what didn't she use for instead of sit, she'd say park it?
Park it. That's cute.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Park it.
Probably.
Yeah. Right.
There's been all sorts of fun little commands out there. And of course, when we get into multiple dogs, sometimes it's like, I want similar commands for that, but I want to differentiate commands for that. So if you keep it simple, then you'll be able to remember all the commands across multiple dogs, etc. Do you change commands from dog to dog?
Not really.
No, I don't really either.
No, I don't think I ever have. No.
I might, if I get creative at some point, I might use a different cue word for something. But no, generally I expect the response to name to direct the attention to me first, and then I give the direction from there. So another reason to teach a good, clear response to name if you have multiple dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's...
Dun, 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 dun.
In the question box.
I wish when we opened it, it said, I can't believe it's not butter. No, butter. People who are older remember that commercial.
Butter. Parquet.
Yeah.
Parquet? Yeah,
parquet.
Where's
butter.
I have glasses this week so I can read the question.
Butter.
Can't get them on my face past my headphones. Okay. My dog bites me every time I try to train her by feeding her to teach her her name. Okay, my dog bites me every time I try to train her by feeding her to teach her her name.
Taking food roughly, I guess.
Okay, thank you. I was struggling a little bit there. It's awkwardly worded. Alrighty, so we teach right off the bat. One of the first things that my new puppy next week is going to start learning is how to take food gently. And this can be hard for puppies because they don't know how to do anything yet. This puppy's coming home and he's going to be clumsy and flopping all over the place.
And he's
going to have to put his parts back together. No.
He's had like 7 or 8 weeks of biting his litter mates.
Oh, yeah. And I've been watching on the webcam, and I can't even tell you the amount of times I use the word savages. I'll be sitting there. Kip will be sitting beside me, and I'll just say, savages. Savages. They're savages. Like, when they come home in land shark mode, it is honest.
They're hooligans. Hooligans.
I love it. And I can't wait to like start to drill down on rules and things like that, and understanding of where it's appropriate to use teeth and where it's not. But oh my goodness, like puppies are little land sharks,
right?
And they come by it honestly, and like,
well, they're animals
in the litter, and they'll like, one will go and jump on the other who's in the middle of sleeping, go and jump on the other and just grab its ear and start shaking it like, and the poor puppy wakes up screaming, and then of course that puppy bullies another puppy, and they're taking turns bullying each other.
Actually, they must like the peace when they get to our house. It's like, whoa,
thank goodness,
no one's gonna wake me up from a nap with a bite.
When they're ready to come home at 8 weeks, they really do need individual attention and direction and whatnot at that point. Like, it's so obvious watching the webcam. Oh my goodness. Anyways,
back to the question.
Yeah, back to the question. So we teach right off the bat, we start to teach the puppies that if they are not gentle with their mouths, the treat goes away. So basically, it ends up being sort of like a rule out situation where the dog goes, what I was doing wasn't working for me to get the treat. How can I adjust my behavior? Right. So basically, what I'm going to do in a nutshell, simplify this, I'm going to put the food in my hand, cover it with my thumb. Usually what I do is I present it perpendicular to the puppy. So it's kind of awkward to try to show if you're watching on the camera. But what I do is I present it perpendicular. I don't want to hold it in my fingers, right? Between my two fingers like this, because then it's really hard for my puppy to get that without biting my fingers, right? Because they're clumsy at that point.
Right.
They're going to be trying to get the food and their teeth are going to be flying. So I want to give my puppy a fighting chance by putting it in sort of the base of my palm, where my palm meets my fingers there, covering it with my thumb, presenting it perpendicular to the puppy. And chances are he's going to be able to sniff and lick to try to get out that treat, but there's no real place for him to latch on and grab. So I can start the work of teaching him to take food gently that way. So if he's sniffing and licking, I can say yes, move my thumb, and let him eat that treat out of my palm. Now, if on the other hand, he's biting at my thumb, let's say, all I'm going to do is give him a little oops and pull it away. So I want to identify that what he's doing is not something I like. Right. And I don't want to scare him in that. I don't want to, like, have a big, you're hurting my hand. Like, that's not my intention.
Or some people do like a high-pitched eek or something like that, and then the dog says, that's hilarious.
Lots of dogs think, ooh, that was exciting. Right. Actually, you know what? Like, back to watching these puppies in litter, if there's a puppy screaming, all the other little savages
jump on top, don't
I love
they?
This puppy. Oh my God. I can't wait to get him home, and I love them, but they definitely are like, they're a lot. They're a lot. So all the other puppies, go flying in and like, game on. Let's get this puppy that's screaming. I mean, they are predators at heart. Their instinct is to go in, and a lot of them really enjoy it. As humans, we think, oh, they're going to feel bad that they hurt us when we eek and pull away. Go watch a litter of puppies.
Yeah, they think it's hilarious.
They don't feel bad at all. They feel excited. Right. They get stimulated by it.
Yes, because otherwise, if they're in the wild and they caught a rabbit and the rabbit screams,
they're not going to say,
sorry, rabbit, I didn't mean to hurt you. Yeah. They're going to dig in harder.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's how they're built, and
especially if you have a terrier that is,
good point. And when we're realistic about who dogs are, we can speak to them instead of skirting issues that we need to actually address. So this is a really good question, because this is the first stage in creating bite inhibition. Right. So I'm going to identify that this is something I don't like with that no reward marker. I use oops, pull it away. Or I might use a little It's just not going to terrify the puppy, but it's going to pinpoint. Right. You don't get this treat because you did something I don't like. And then I'm going to pull the food away. Now, what I'm going to do from there is offer it right back to the puppy. I don't want to hold it ransom, because then what's going to happen?
The puppy's going to start jumping at it.
Exactly. The puppy's going to go, give me the treat. And then people go, and they make the problem worse, essentially. So I'm in charge. I'm the leader. I'm going to be confident in my motions. I've offered that treat, felt teeth. Oops, pull it away. I'm going to offer it right back again. If I feel teeth again, I'm just going to repeat. Oops, pull it away. Offer it back. Once my puppy says, okay, this isn't working, and they try something different, I'm going to make sure that they get the reward for that. So now, maybe 3 or 4 times in, my puppy goes, okay, I'm going to be a little bit more gentle in trying to take this treat. And when I acknowledge that by saying yes and moving my thumb, letting him eat that treat out, that is going to be a fabulous win for my puppy. And he's going to start to moderate his own behavior. Now, with this, a lot of times people will try to preempt that, right? You hear people going, gently, be gentle, as they're going to give the dog a treat.
And when did they teach the dog the word gentle?
That is a very good point. But in addition, even if, say, the dog does go, oh, okay, I understand that gentle means be careful with my teeth. Now I have to do that forever.
Yes.
I have to, am I really responsible for reminding my dog, who's perfectly capable of learning to take food gently from my hand? They are, baby puppies aside, they're incredibly well-versed at controlling their mouths. They can and do find ways to be very careful with their mouths if we give them incentive to do so. So making sure that my dog understands you don't get good things if you're rough with your teeth is the first step in that bite inhibition process. And the dogs learn that it's their responsibility. And that's the nice thing. I don't want to have to remind my puppy every time I'm about to give him a food reward. And then, of course, up through the dog's life, gentle. Now you be gentle. I don't want to have to remind my dog of that. No. It's up to my dog to be gentle with his mouth, period. And if he's not, he doesn't get the treat.
Exactly.
So, awesome question. Thank you for asking it.
Next one.
Oh,
I got another upside down one. Okay.
Read it upside down.
My dog doesn't follow food. What should I do? So this is luring. Now we do if you go to our website, we do have an excellent free workshop on luring.
Yes, you're right. Yes, absolutely. I forgot about that.
Whereabouts on our website is it?
It would be under other programs. So you'll find it at in the workshop section. There's and it's 2 free workshops actually available for anybody who is looking to learn a little bit about dog training.
Right. Yes. So if my puppy's not following food, basically, I'm going to look, is my puppy hungry or what am I doing? So I'm going to pick a point where I know my puppy is very hungry. So before they eat. And I'm going to get my treat and I'm going to put it right beside their nose. So right in front of their nostrils. And I'm just going to kind of leave it there for a moment. And then I'm slowly going to move it. A lot of people move it too fast. And the dog says, I don't know what's happening. Like, what happened? Like,
where did it go?
Right. I always say you whoosh it away from them. So we need to move food very slow and very deliberately away from the puppy's nose at the puppy's level too. I'm going to hold that food. It's almost like I'm pulling a string out of their nose, that food. I'm just moving it along, kind of a gross thing to think about, but I'm just moving it along and I'm choosing a point where the dog is hungry too.
Yeah.
I may even, if I'm really struggling, maybe I'll experiment and get a better type of treat too to see if the puppy will follow something with a very strong smell.
Yeah, good thinking. The stinkier, the better. And truly, teaching the puppy how to follow a lure is a skill. It seems so silly for us as humans to even think that we would need to explain this to the puppy, but we do. We need to teach them how to follow the food. So when my puppy comes home, the first things I'm going to be doing is just that little wiggle of food in front of his nose as I move my hand very slowly. And then my goal for him is for him to learn that following the treat often results in you getting the treat.
Yes. So with back to the question too, I might move the food a tiny bit and I see the puppy's one paw steps forward. I'm going to yes and feed that.
Yeah.
So the puppy's like, oh, I moved a little tiny bit and I got the treat.
Such good advice.
Perhaps the person's doing too much, like they're luring for like a full minute and the puppy's like, I can't win. There's no way I'm getting this treat.
Yes.
So make sure that you're rewarding the tiniest little increments and slowly building.
Yeah, absolutely. And they pick up on it very quickly as long as they get the reinforcement for it. So a half a step initially is plenty. And then, open and release that treat. Let the dog have it.
Yes.
Good advice. All right, there's one more in here.
One more.
Uh-oh. Can I read it? Oh, it's upside down too. All right. At what age can you teach them their name? This is one of the first things I'm going to teach my puppy.
Right. And a lot of, and I think, well, puppies are very capable of learning from a very young age, but I know often in the litter, the breeders give them little names.
Yeah.
And I often notice that my puppy responds to that little name the breeders gave them. So they probably learned it at like 4 or 5 weeks old, I bet.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah.
Well, and that's just from those associations, right? Pleasant things happening when you hear your name, etc. So
right. Or even the word pup.
Yep.
they respond to right away. And that could be the dog's name. Like it's
Absolutely.
a sound. It's a sound they're responding to.
Is. Yeah, I start teaching out immediately. I start teaching learning systems immediately. So I'll teach the pup how to do things like lure and shape. I'll hit on capturing a little bit with the puppy. And
fetch a beer.
And fetch a beer. Yeah,
that's
right
the
off
first
the hop.
thing. Yeah,
that is the
first thing that puppy will learn. Fetch a beer.
Response
do my
to name
taxes.
and out. I teach out really early with my puppies because we need it.
Right. Oh, yes.
You know?
Puppies explore
like
the world
pick
with
up
their mouths.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So I don't want to be wrestling with my puppy. I want to teach him that out is a really valuable thing to do right away. That's going to be high on my priority list. And response to name is going to be a big one as well. I want my puppy to learn that name without questions so that I can use it for the entirety of their life with good expectations. So I will start those things the second my puppy well, you know, I'll let him settle in for a little bit and
an hour
realize
at least an hour. Or the car ride home. He can settle in on the car ride home.
It is a 10-hour drive. So,
right?
I mean, you know, he's got lots of time to settle in. Oh
right?
Gosh,
yeah.
Poor guy. Yeah, it's...
He's going to be surprised hopping in your car for a 10-hour ride.
Yes, it'll be different for him. They're actually out right now at their first vet appointment, getting their, you know, they're all over checks and first vaccines and all that. So he's had a few car rides. They just did puppy evals yesterday, and that was, of course, fascinating watching all their little personalities when they're away from the litter mates and it's just them in the big area that's set up with all sorts of little things. Like there was a toy that sang La Cucaracha when you touched it. There was a little teeter totter for the puppies to experiment. There was lots of retrieve items, of course, because we're looking for desirability when it comes to birds and things like that. So those of us that are going to do field work with our puppies have puppies that are eager to do field work too. Yeah. You know, all the things.
Yeah, they can't be frightened of birds.
Exactly. Yeah. And their personalities, right? You want to know, okay, so this house over here is a first-time dog house. We're not going to put the toughest puppy in the litter that's beating up all the other puppies and that walked into those tests and went, I can handle all this and take on this entire world. Right. Just like that. You know, you don't want to put that with a first-time dog owner. You want that dog to shine like they can by going into a home that understands how to channel that sort of confidence and ability, et cetera, et cetera. So the puppy tests are they're so good for revealing a little bit. It's a window, right? You have to take it with a grain of salt because they're developing and they're going through different periods and whatnot. So that one window can be sort of outside the norm for them, but it's still great information to have.
Yes. And even you want a puppy that can make progress. Yes, so you want a puppy that's not stagnant, but a puppy that, you know, is making progress and shows that it can learn and grow and adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. The McCanns have bred several Border Collie litters in their life, and I used to love the way that they did their puppy tests because they did 3 weeks worth of puppy tests, not just that 1 week. Right. And then they were able to compare the results from those weeks. So you wouldn't necessarily be falling into that trap of believing that one little window was the entirety of the pup. Right. You can see 3 very distinct windows and see what kind of progress they had made in that time.
Yes.
So I thought that was a really fascinating way to do things. But at any rate, he's coming home. It's all in the bag now. Like I'm just counting the sleeps now.
Have you stocked up on paper towels?
I've stocked up on pretty much everything. No, nothing.
I'm going to buy some stocks in Bounty paper towels because I know Shannon's going to be going through extra paper towels.
I do always have lots and lots of paper towels, and we'll see. I mean, Ned was a cinch to house train. He really practically house trained himself. He was so brilliant. So we shall see how well this pup. Actually, you know what? I can't think of any puppies that I've had trouble with house training with.
Yeah, the only dog I had trouble with house breaking was Cowboy, and I had to. That was my Saluki that I got. She'd lived her life under a heat lamp.
Right.
I got her in the middle of Canadian winter, and I had a 2-year-old toddler, and I was living by myself. And I had to think extremely out of the box for teaching that dog.
Yeah, understandably.
Yes. But it all turned out, and she was awesomely housebroken. But I had to, I couldn't use the regular cookie cutter method I'd always used with my dogs.
She wouldn't go outside.
Well, she would, and I couldn't leave
screaming puppy.
Yeah, and I couldn't leave a toddler in the house while I scooped a puppy outside.
Of course.
So it was just Yes, it was a whole different thing. So there's always exceptions to every rule. So that's why it's great to help, to get professional help.
Yeah.
If you're working on something and go, you know what, this isn't, in the box dog training, definitely to ask someone and they can help you out. We have so much information to pull from here at McCann's. We have so many great instructors, so many different breeds and situations that we're a great pool of knowledge.
Absolutely. And with our online training programs, you get support. So a lot of the times with online programs, you're just sort of on your own where you're watching videos and then trying to put things into motion. With our online training programs, we get to know our students so well.
Yes.
It's really interesting actually because with in-person, we see people for that hour and a half every week, and then they go home and they live their lives with their puppies, and we don't really hear from them unless they have a problem. Whereas with our online students, because of the nature of our online training, we have support running all week long. We have a support group. We have an email service that people can reach out to us. We also meet with our online students, quote unquote, in person on live coaching calls that we put on over the internet, of course. So they're not really in person, but they're us in person working through a screen.
And we encourage our students to send us videos as well. So if you're having trouble and you're like trying to explain it to us, just send us a video and we can watch and go, okay. And then we can also see what else is going on. I remember, one video came and I could see, she had her kids sitting on the couch while things were happening. And, normally I wouldn't have had that insight from just a student talking to me in class. But I saw right away, she's got 3 young children. She's got a very busy life. So, we were able then to more tailor our information to that.
Absolutely. And of course, this is all while following a great program, instructions set out to teach the dog how to do all the obedience skills that we talked about, with a full program to guide you through. And then, of course, the support to fill in any holes when things don't go as expected. Because let's face it, dogs are dogs.
Right.
And there's not this huge predictability factor across the board for every dog. There is predictability and there is assumption that things are going to go in a certain way, but when they don't, you really want to have somebody that you can rely on to say, this is why they didn't, and this is what you can change.
Right. And
then you're going to get a better result. And hey, you know what? That's not working for Fifi. Let's try this instead.
Right. Yes.
How about this idea? That's the fun part of being dog trainers that have been around for a very long time, and we have all these different methods that we can tap into to say, that didn't work, let's try this.
Right. And we recognize that humans are different too. Like what I'm capable of doing physically might not be what another person is capable. Right. Or another person may be more capable than me physically to do something. Yeah. So we can look at physical limitations and, just differences in your lifestyle and say, okay, you know what? This is going to work for you better than it will work for this other person.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the fun part. That's the part of my job that I
know.
Really
it's
love.
The brainstorming and out of the box work.
Absolutely. And, and getting to the solution where, this didn't quite work for this team. Okay, let's keep drilling down. Yep. What can we do?
Yes.
Well, this has been fun. On that note, I'm Instructor Shannon.
Instructor Swanee.
Happy training.
The McCann Dogs Podcast is brought to you by McCann Professional Dog Trainers. We help dog owners to have a well-behaved, 4-legged family member. Please give us a call at 905-659-1888 or visit us at mccanndogs.com. Happy training!